So my medical assistant brings a patient back and comes into the room where I'm sitting doing notes and says, "Oh, doc, we have a patient with a skin tag." Okay, pretty common complaint, see it all the time, no big deal. She had a 27-inch horn coming off of her back.
Hi everyone, my name is Callie. Today is a very exciting day. We are live from Malibu, where Cetaphil is launching their new Revive rebrand at SkinLabs. I'm here with Dr. Adam Friedman, who we are very excited to have on the podcast today. Dr. Friedman is a board-certified dermatologist and also a member of the GSSF group, which for those of you who don't know, stands for Galderma Sensitive Skincare Faculty. He's a valued partner. They work on the innovation and research behind the formulations of the product. So very special and important guest. Welcome, Dr. Friedman.
You flatter me so. Thank you so much for having me. Pleasure to be here.
Yes, he really is a superstar at Galderma. So I'm even a little nervous just being with him today. So again, thank you so much for being here. Today we're going to talk about Cetaphil's new gentle exfoliating line, which Dr. Friedman played an integral role in the formulations and the research and data behind the triple acid blend, which we'll talk about in a second. But before we get started, we want to just get to know you, Dr. Friedman, get to know the man behind the lab coat. So I'm going to ask you a few questions just so our audience gets to know Dr. Adam Friedman.
Yeah, bring it. Let's do it.
Perfect. Okay. So our first question. If you weren't a dermatologist, what other career would you have pursued?
That is a great question. I feel like I actually ask our resident applicants at GW that all the time.
Yeah.
If you couldn't be a dermatologist, what you would do. So I actually wanted to be an actor when I was younger. I wanted to be on stage. I did a lot of community theater. And then it dawned on me that probably this wasn't going to work out. My daughter is pursuing a similar route, so I wish her the best of luck, and she definitely has more talent than I do. But one of the things about being a dermatologist, especially an academic dermatologist, I get to be on stage. I get to use that podium, that platform to educate the masses. And so with that in mind, I'm really actually now answering your question. If I couldn't be a dermatologist, I'd be a teacher. I love using unique and fun and innovative ways to teach people about complex topics, and especially in dermatology, using imagery to really hit unique points home that aren't necessarily in textbooks. Okay. So I would no doubt be a teacher somewhere.
Oh my gosh, I love it. Well, okay, the acting route, you're on camera now, so it's kind of a full circle moment in Malibu of all places. Right. So I was not expecting that. I'm
getting more film time than if I actually tried to be an actor. So it's funny how that works out.
Well, you're doing great. Okay, next question. If your skin had a theme song, what would it be?
That is an interesting question. If my skin had a theme song, it would be AC/DC Shoot to Thrill.
Oh, okay.
Because I think that, you know, the skin is our first kind of line of interface with the outside world. And so making sure it is ready to shoot from the hip, so to speak, when you walk out the door, as well as being guarded and armed against all the horrible things out there that can injure your skin, whether it be ultraviolet radiation, pollution, you name it. So I am always ready to shoot to thrill when it comes to the care of my skin.
Are you a big AC/DC fan?
I am not. It was very easy when my son was very much into AC/DC. Now he's more moved over to Kendrick. So I kind of just go with the flow. And
wait, that's a big jump.
It's a big jump.
AC/DC to Kendrick.
Yeah, I still throw in there my running mix. So definitely a big fan.
Okay, well, your son has great taste in music because both are incredible artists. Okay, next question. What is your favorite weird fact about skin that most people don't know?
I think something that is frustrating about the skin, but also it's helpful to know, is that it's very regimented in terms of how it turns over. So the epidermis, which is our top layer, not the outermost layer, but that's part of the epidermis, really wants to go with the flow. It has a very set way and set of rules in terms of its turnover from bottom to top. And the problem with that is when you have a primary skin disease like acne or eczema, or there's injury from the outside world, that flow gets disturbed and the skin starts making itself too quickly, but it wants to stay regimented. And that's where we see uneven tone, we see rough and bumpy skin, because that top layer, the stratum corneum, can't get off fast enough. So I think understanding that biology is very specific and knowing how so many things can interfere with that turnover. And that's where I think exfoliation comes in and why people want to do it, because there's so many reasons why that turnover could be disrupted. Just understanding that and that kind of order of things I really like about the skin, but understanding it also allows me to better combat the problems when things go wrong.
I've never felt like I related more to my own skin in my life, because if I get ahead of myself, things also get rough and bumpy. So interesting fact. Okay. So next question, what is the most unexpected thing that's ever happened to you in the clinic?
Oh, that's easy.
So this sounds juicy.
This is a good one. So, the flow of clinics is we have medical assistants who literally save our lives every day. They are really the workforce that kind of gets things going, keeps things moving in clinic. So my medical assistant brings a patient back and comes into the room where I'm sitting doing notes and says, "Oh, doc, we have a patient with a skin tag." Okay, pretty common complaint, see it all the time, no big deal. Go into the room, introduce myself, and I say, "Oh, I hear you have a skin tag. Where is it?" "Oh, it's on my back." And I walk around, and very fortunately, she was facing away from me. She had a 27-inch horn coming off of her back. What's called a giant cutaneous horn. What? Yes, people can grow horns.
No, you're lying.
I swear, this is actually the largest recorded cutaneous horn in the literature. And it had literally been there for 27 years. Now, why this happens, so you're like, that's impossible. We're not unicorns. So what can happen is, depending on whether maybe a skin cancer or even a wart, a viral infection of the skin is being told, again, to make itself too quickly. And so it tears up. And so you get this kind of pile up of skin. Now, normally it won't grow to the size of a shofar, but it can if given enough time. And so we needed to make sure it wasn't skin cancer. So I wanted to do a biopsy and remove it. But of course, the patient wanted me to remove it. The problem was the bottles we put our specimens in to send to the lab to look under the microscope are this big.
So wait, can you show us like how big was this horn? That's
crazy. It was about this big.
So she was just like, "Oh, I have a skin tag," like casually, and then just
super cash.
Completely, it was like, "Oh yeah."
She's like, "Don't you have one of these?" I'm like,
"Ah." A horn on their back.
Yeah, I mean, thank God it was on her back, because I can only imagine my facial expression. I mean, one of the nice things about wearing a mask, the patient can't see how stunned we are sometimes, and the skin is both incredible and disgusting all at the same time. That's one of the things I love about dermatology. You're always surprised. You're always kept on your toes. But in this case, to be able to send it off to make sure it wasn't skin cancer, I had to send my team down the street to a pharmacy to buy Tupperware to be able to fit it.
No way.
And then we took all these little bottles and pouring the formalin, the preservative, in order to fix it, in order to look under the microscope. I don't think I've ever had to go to a CVS ever before to play a role in how I'm taking care of my patients. So that definitely is an outlier. There's a lot of cool stuff in derm. I love my job. I have the best job in the world. But that one, I would have to say, is probably one of the wildest clinical stories ever.
That is wild. The poor girl, that probably was not fun to sit or drive or do anything.
She was so nonchalant. It's amazing what people are willing to tolerate, truth be told. But I think that's an important call to action, that if something is not going away, if something is disrupting, whether it be your quality of life, your ability to, pursue daily activities, there is help. There are board certified dermatologists
See your
out there.
dermatologist.
Yes, well said.
Yes. Okay, so next question. That was fascinating, by the way. I'm going to be thinking about that for the rest of the day.
I hope you don't have nightmares from that.
No, I honestly, I might, I just might, but yeah. That's fascinating. Okay, so last question, final question before we get into the gentle exfoliating line and all of that. What is one skincare ingredient that everyone should know about but few people do? So
that is such an easy question for me, and it's got to be Urea. First and foremost, such an unfortunate name for actually what I would argue is a natural ingredient. So Urea is an incredible ingredient in that its function varies depending on how much you have.
Okay.
What I mean by this is when you have low concentrations of Urea, it functions as a humectant. What humectants are things that can pull water to them. They love water. And there are a lot of examples of humectants in skincare. When you start going to a higher concentration, however, it can be a keratolytic or an exfoliant, helping turning over the top layer of the skin. Now, that's not the only cool thing about it. Thinking about natural ingredients, because our skin will naturally make Urea, and as we get older, our ability to do so lessens, which is why there are problems with aged skin as we get older. But something unique about Urea is that it can actually turn on these channels in the skin called aquaporins. Think of that like aqueducts. And when our skin is injured or dried, Urea can turn these little tubes on, these little straws, to shuttle water from different layers of the skin to where it's actually needed. So it's not just pulling water in, it's not just peeling things off, it's actually manipulating the skin to better serve you and protect you from the outside world.
Huh. So actually, this is a perfect segue.
Sure.
So obviously, we want to talk about Cetaphil's new gentle exfoliating line, all of that. Why is exfoliating important?
So I think whether it's important from the perspective of a dermatologist is quite irrelevant because people are going to pursue it. And that's what I've seen. There is this sense that skin does its best to do its job, to turn over the right way, as we were talking about before, in terms of that very regimented turnover to kick dead skin cells to the curb, allow new ones to come in to form our armor, our outside barrier. There are a lot of reasons why that doesn't happen correctly, and that translates into whether it be poor appearance, whether it be the feel. And so there's a sense that, well, can I help it along? Can I translate what we understand from skin biology to what I'm putting on my skin to help it turn over correctly? The problem is many of those ways that one can do that can actually cause damage, or maybe it's not tolerable to someone with a primary skin condition. So there are two general categories of exfoliants. There are physical exfoliants, as the name infers, that it is something that will physically break the skin. These might be little beads or fruit-based seeds. I am very, very, very much against those. Because to help your skin turn over by causing more damage doesn't seem to make a lot of sense, right? You may physically remove that excess skin, but by causing injury, you're actually going to make it worse down the road. So that we can just throw out. Do not take a Brillo pad to your skin. Not a good plan. The more appropriate plan is using chemical exfoliants, ingredients that will break up the bonds holding that top layer together, maybe steel or what's called chelating, central things that are needed to form those bonds so the skin can turn over correctly. That is a much safer approach. Now, the only issue that comes up with, depending on what exfoliant you use, and there are a lot, there are a whole host of different acids from alpha to beta to poly acids that they are defined based on their structure, but they're also defined based on their size. Depending on how small they are, they might get past where they need to go. They may get deeper in the skin and actually cause irritation. So it's not saying, oh, only go with chemical exfoliants, that's the way to go. It's about being purposeful about what you use. And it's all about purposeful design. You know, just throwing something, mixing together in your mom's bathtub and saying, oh, I put an acid in here, that's a good thing. That's not necessarily true. You need to think about what ingredients are matched to what we're trying to accomplish in the skin, but also we have to think about safety and tolerability, especially if we're targeting a particular patient population that may not be able to use the standard ingredients that maybe the general public can. The other piece about exfoliation is as you're peeling that top layer, you are opening the skin up to some degree. And so you also want to set the skin up for success. And to do that, we need to create an environment that will allow for that. And what I mean by that is two big things. One, acidity. So our skin is actually acidic. pH is a kind of marker for acidity. 7 is neutral, right in the middle. Our skin likes and actually will function correctly at a lower number. So somewhere between 5.5 and 6.5. Using an acid to exfoliate will also set the tone to allow for an acidic environment, but also we need to pull water in. That top layer of the skin needs a little bit of water for everything to function. And a lot of these acids are also humectants and pull water in. So it's about being thoughtful about what these things do, but also thinking about the person who has to use it in order so that they can.
Right. Wow. That was a great answer. My gosh, incredible. So along that same line, so I know you talked about being purposeful and the ingredients and making sure that the products that you're using are intentional. Can you talk to us more about Cetaphil's gentle exfoliating line, some of the ingredients that Cetaphil uses in that line and why that might be beneficial for those, especially with sensitive skin?
I think it's about thinking about the size of these exfoliants. So those really encompass the alpha and beta hydroxy acids. And now we have these polyhydroxy acids. And all these are defined based on the number of oxygen and hydrogen combos called hydroxyl units. And that actually defines also what these things can do even beyond exfoliating. They can serve as antioxidants, they can be antibacterial, all good things depending on what you're trying to accomplish. So when I'm thinking about the actual ingredients, I want to think about where am I trying to go? What am I trying to accomplish? So if we are simply trying to just help turn over the top layer, that stratum corneum, which is millions of a meter thick, Do I need to burn off the whole top layer of the skin, the epidermis? Absolutely not. And so I want to use exfoliants that are larger in size. Size absolutely matters. When we think about glycolic acid, a very well-known alpha hydroxy acid has been used in dermatology for decades. It is one of the smallest, and so it penetrates deeper, but that's the purpose of it. That is for more in-office based peels when you're really removing the whole top layer for really impressive and extensive rejuvenation of the skin. But when we're talking about exfoliating on a day-to-day, that would be a very bad idea. So we want to think about, well, marrying the size of these ingredients based on what they do, what environments they like to live in. Do we want them just being on that top layer? Do we want to get them into the hair follicle area and kind of clean things out? That purpose will then define, well, what are we going to throw into the mix? Are we going to go with something that likes a fattier area like salicylic acid to get into the hair follicle? Are we going to think about something that will peel that top layer off like a mandelic acid because it's pretty big and it can't get through? So that's what I mean by being purposeful and thinking about the consumer, but also if we're going to say it's for sensitive skin, before we even start to define what that is, we need to think about ingredients that will not be absurdly, irritating, that will not penetrate deeply, that by combining them with other ingredients that allow us to lessen the concentration of each, but also combining with things like niacinamide and other B vitamins and glycerin, which is a humectant, that combination both restores and also kicks that top layer off to the curb at the same time. And when we combine those two approaches, we get a better outcome.
Amazing. I love it. Well, again, as mentioned, Dr. Friedman helped work on the formulation behind this triple acid blend of mandelic acid, gluconolactone, and salicylic acid. So highly recommend if you have sensitive skin, maybe that's something that you have had trouble with in the past with exfoliants and irritating your skin. Dr. Friedman played an integral role in formulating this for Cetaphil. So thank you so much, Dr. Friedman, for being here today, helping educate the audience about the importance. And definitely, if you haven't already, go out and purchase the new Cetaphil Gentle Exfoliating line. It truly is incredible. Thank you, Dr. Friedman, so much for being here.
My pleasure. Thanks so much.
Till next time, guys. Thanks.